Hey guys, well, it seems xAI is kind of taking a bit of a power move here, and they're doing something that is kind of unexpected. So, xAI has decided to team up with a company called Palantir to promote financial services to use AI. Now, this is a very, very interesting thing, especially because, one, the financial sector kind of uses AI. They use more machine learning models than they do like LLMs, at least at this current moment in time, and especially for fraud detection and the likes like that. But this is going to be a kind of a really really interesting partnership for a lot of different reasons that I'm going to go ahead and cover in today's video. Let's get right into it. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and start off with this article by an organization called PYMNTS. I don't really know if there's a better way of pronouncing it, but this is about as good as an article as I can find on it. So, xAI has teamed up with Palantir to explore how financial service firms can employ AI. The partnership announced Tuesday, which, if we look at this article by Business Wire, it's a lot of corporate speak, talks about how they're proud to partner, yada yada. Basically, it's just an extension of an earlier collaboration announced in March between Palantir and the holding company TWG Global. The companies say their efforts are happening at a time when CEOs are reorganizing the importance of artificial intelligence, even though most companies remain stuck at the proof of concept stage, which admittedly is true. A lot of different companies in a lot of different sectors are basically stuck in the sort of proof of concept stage as to whether or not they actually want to employ AI in their tooling. Now, there's something kind of weird about this. So, Palantir is a company best known for AI powered automation. They sell to defense companies, the US military, other militaries. They're definitely more defense centric. They offer tooling for front lines stuff. They have automation for factories. They have combat automation for frontline combat kind of ordeals. You can kind of do your own custom automation and a bunch of different things. They're mainly an automation company. What they do from the forefront is kind of vague. A little while ago, I did my own sort of deep dive into what exactly this company does, and a majority of what they do is automation, but their big money and their big interest here comes from their defense offerings. They're definitely more military centric. Not that they don't offer automations for a lot of different things. They have like anti-money laundering, energy, health, finance services, food and beverage, insurance, intelligence, rail, retail, telecommunications even. They offer a lot of different like possible opportunities for like AI powered automation. I say AI in quotes because ultimately I'm not fully sure what that all encompasses. I know some of it. I know in their defense offerings, because I did look into what those are. I do know that those do involve large language models to some degree. AKA, you could go ahead and talk to an LLM about what's going on in the battlefield and try to get best strategies and stuff like that. But for I don't really know what to call it other than for what it's worth. What Palantir does is kind of vague. You can find some documentation online about what they do, but ultimately they are kind of a vague company. They make a lot of money. Like, admittedly, they do make money. they they have like an actual standing in the industry, especially in the military sector. The military sector is where, at least to me, it appears they get a lot of their money from. Um, so, all things considered, yeah, they are a legitimate company. It's not like just some company that spawned out of nowhere using buzzwords. No, they are legitimate. It's just what they do is really really vague. They make automation software. That's all they really say. They don't go into much further detail. Not unless you try to dig further into it. xAI, we all know them for Grok. It's Elon Musk's own AI company. That's kind of about it. Like we'd only know them for Grok, And even then, xAI comes down with its own controversies because it's, related to X, formerly Twitter, and Twitter has its own controversies. It's just all people know xAI for is the funny Grok model that occasionally, responds to Twitter posts, maybe talk to it. That's kind of all they know xAI for, right? And Palantir, nobody really knows Palantir all that much until you start digging into it a little bit deeper. And then you realize they're a big defense contractor. So I find this kind of a bold move, specifically on the forefront that xAI is. I wouldn't say they're known to be a professional AI company like OpenAI is. xAI is like, they're not that professional. Nobody, all things considered, nobody refers to Twitter and its related subsidiaries, because admittedly xAI is very related to Twitter in the most professional aspect. Let's be honest. If any of you have looked through Twitter for even more than 5 minutes, you understand that it's not like serious business talk, right? It's not something that's necessarily viewed in a professional light, more like a casual light, you know what I mean? As such, as associated products are probably viewed in the same light, including Grok. Grok isn't viewed as some like groundbreaking, revolutionary, like researching AI model. No, nobody really looks at it that way. Everybody looks at Grok as something just kind of casual. So I think what this partnership has the opportunity of doing is allowing xAI to get a foothold into the more professional industries, for example, financial services, and allowing their models to be used in a much more business to business instead of business to consumer light. Because right now, xAI doesn't really serve business to business. They have APIs. You can get like API credits for Grok and stuff. But again, nobody really looks at it in that much of a professional light, at least not at the moment. Everybody looks at it in a more consumeristic, normal, like just casual light. Because again, it's all things, for better and for worse, it's associated with Twitter, right? So nobody looks at it in like oh, I'm going to use this for my business aspect. Nobody does. At least not enough to really concentrate the income of xAI. And now this is just my opinion. Obviously, I don't have access to xAI's books. I can't tell you for certain, but I would make it a good bet that a lot of their income doesn't come off of a B2B transactions. It comes off of B2C, or business to consumer, from, people paying for Grok as a standard person, not a business buying it in bulk. You know what I mean? So on that note, I would say that this is a very, very interesting move that, if it goes well, could spell a lot of good news for xAI, because then they could start seeing a huge ramp up of B2B consumers, and B2B rakes in a lot of money. It rakes in a lot of money. The standard consumer doesn't pay that much for AI. A business, however, which employs a lot of different employees and does constant work on AI, especially when it's implemented well, tends to spend a lot of money on it, because AI isn't cheap. Tokens cost money. They cost power, they cost resources, hardware resources. Every token is like a little piece of memory being used on a GPU somewhere in, I don't know, probably Texas, right? Like, tokens cost a lot of money. And ultimately, they're not going to, at least in large quantities anyways, it will start to add up fast. And the typical consumer isn't going to be paying by the, like by the millionth token, right? They're going to be paying like a flat monthly fee. And this can cover a lot and can drive revenue, but it doesn't drive a whole lot at the end of the day, all things considered, especially when you consider the costs of all the hardware and everything. It will drive a lot of revenue, but not a whole lot. I feel like where a lot of the revenue in the AI industry comes from is the B2B transactions. and this is going to be a bit of a weird comparison, but stick with me here. Probably for a similar reason as to, like, Microsoft's own income. Microsoft has a lot of products. They have Windows, they have, Office. We know them for that, right? They have all these different products. And honestly, not even a whole lot of normal people pay for Windows anymore, let's be honest. Maybe some of you paid for Office, but not a lot of people pay for Windows anymore because it either comes with their computer or they aren't bugged enough by the please activate Windows prompt to actually activate Windows. So keep that in mind. There's a lot of people who probably don't even pay for Windows anymore. Maybe a few people who pay for Office personally. And there's some personal revenue, like some B2C commerce that Microsoft drives. It's not a whole lot. I mean, in the grand scheme of things, with like thousands upon thousands upon thousands of people who all have like maybe like Office licenses to do like basic home accounting work or something, it will drive a decent chunk of money, but not a whole lot, right? A lot of their revenues come from B2B because businesses buy in bulk because they have a lot of employees that all need to do work. For example, there's this computer behind me, if you can see right here. Actually, can you see right there? Yes, you can kind of see. There's a computer right here. Let's say I'm a company. I have like 150 of these all in my office, and that's a small office. In my headquarters, I might have 50,000. All of these need to run Windows because I have a lot of employees that only really know Windows, only want Windows, and all my software runs on Windows. Maybe I also need Office too, because somebody needs to do the accounting, right? Somebody needs to make those spreadsheets. So as a business, I'm going to go to Microsoft and I'm going to ask them, hey, I have like 50,000 computers, all of which need Windows on it. And I also need a lot of Office licenses for all of my employees. I'm going to pay you a pretty penny. Microsoft will then license per computer, per user, and that drives the bulk of the revenue for the company. B2B makes a lot more money than B2C. And I would say the same policy applies with AI companies because there's going to be some normal, just standard personal users who will pay for AI, like ChatGPT Plus, but that isn't going to drive the bulk of the revenue. The bulk of the revenue is going to come from B2B. That's the actual moneymaker. So, with that in mind, I think xAI's plan here is kind of genius. Assuming it works out well. It's possible, it's entirely possible, that we could just hear this once and then never hear anything about it again. But if they can get their foot through the door, maybe, just maybe, they can turn around the perspective that everybody has on Grok, and maybe they can drive more B2B revenue. And if they can drive more B2B revenue, that means they get more money. That means they have more money to spend on employees, on workforce, on going out and, putting more servers where they need to be, yada, yada. It kind of becomes cyclical. The more money they get, the more they do, yada, yada. So, assuming this works out, this honestly might be really genius on OpenAI's part. That is about it for today's video. I just thought this was really interesting. Let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. Like, comment, subscribe. Take care, you guys, and remember to stay safe out there.